Hello, this is Amany El Gharib from Gaza in Palestine, but now I live in Norway, and I'm working in peace activities and gender equality, and in many countries in Europe, and I have been also in Asia and Malaysia in this country, and I'm one of the feminist party candidates for the European Parliament list. And this is exceptional, even though I'm not Swedish or Norwegian. And I'm here today to present this presentation. Thank you so much for your coming, and thank you so much for your invitation here in the United Nations group to present this presentation. But before I start, I would like to ask you something, all of you. Could you just give me your hands? I want you to raise one hand, please, all of you. Try to clap. You couldn't. Okay, could you just raise the other one, but not opposite it? It's lower than it. Try to clap. Okay, does it work? No. Okay, change the positions. Okay, clap now. It doesn't work. Can we put them against each other and clap now? Okay, thank you. This is the situation when we have the men is higher than the women, or the women higher than the men in the society, or the men themselves or the women themselves. But this is the situation when we have gender equality in our society, so it will be perfect. So let me today start my presentation. I hope that my idea comes to you now. Shall we turn on the light? Today I will speak about Arab Spring revolutions, reflection on gender equality in Egypt, Syria and Palestine. The Arab Spring revolutions, this is a term which is for the revolutionary wave happened in the Arab region, in the Arabic region. And it's known that it started in Tunisia. We will return to this point later. But this wave happened with violent and non-violent demonstration and protest, as we saw on the TV and in the media, that there were some violent actions, and we can call it civilian war, and some non-violent demonstration and protest in the Arabic region. It's known that it started in Tunisia. But no, it didn't start in Tunisia. It started in the Western Sahara, based on the Noam Chomsky, who's an American thinker. He did mention that this Arab Spring revolution started there when the Sahrawists from the Western Sahara, they just displaced, and they start to establish a camp of 10,000s of tents. And they went to do a revolution against the Moroccan troops and against the Moroccan government because of the problems they have with this Moroccan authorities. But within 1 month, the Moroccan troops fire this camp and eliminate it totally. So that was the beginning of the Arab Spring revolution. As we can see here then, in December 18th of December 2010, we have here the Tunisian revolution, which started in Tunisia on this date, and it has another name which is called the Jasmine Revolution. After that, the revolution in Egypt started at the 25th of January 2011, and also it has another name which is the Lotus Revolution. After this revolution, the revolution in Yemen started. It followed the Tunisian one, and it has initial steps in Yemen and simultaneously with Egypt. So it started in Yemen and began in February 2011. Then, as we can see here, followed by the Libyan revolution in 17th of February 2011. And here, as we can see, the Syrian revolution, which started on the 17th of March 2011. But what did make these revolutions comes, and why now? Let us see the Spring Revolution causes. First of all, the dictatorship or absolute monarchy. It's like the regimes in these countries and in the Arabic countries in general were using the dictatorship style. And the human rights violations. Based on that, the political corruption and the unemployment with the jobless rates, very high jobless rates, and the poverty. Okay, the Arab Spring Revolution in Egypt. As we know that the seeds of democracy are summarized in the legitimacy of the power of taking decisions. These decisions control the people's lives in the society, control the society strategies, control the society also policies. So these decisions should be taken from all the people in the society, including women, which shouldn't be minorities. If we can look to these photos here, we will see that the walls of fear and silence and the stereotypes were broken by the Egyptian women when they decided to go to Tahrir Square, where is the revolution started in 2011. They sent message to the world, included to the Egyptian society, that we are here, shoulder by shoulder with the men in this revolution. We want to participate in our society, political and social reform. And as we can see here from the photos, plus what we did see in the media and on the social media and in the news, that the Egyptian women took place and took turn in everything, even though checking the IDs in Tahrir Square. And 1 year later, I have been in Egypt and I saw in Tahrir Square how they did check the IDs and the bags of the people who just entered Tahrir. And the women, they were there beside the men. And also they participated in just like support the protesters with food, and support them and take the injured people and the killed people to the pilot clinics or to the hospitals. And they just also participating in firing up the protest by leading the chants. And they participating in running a steady stream of social media. And one of the basic and the famous bloggers, she was a female, her name Asma Mahfouz, she was in the first lines in Tahrir Square or in the social media. And this is appear here. And this is also clear that she did break that, like the typical gender style or typical gender rules in Egypt and in their society and in their culture, where they have been classified as a second-class citizens. Although or despite they have a very huge role in the past for many decades in the political participation. But let us see what did happen to them in this revolution. These ladies, as you can see here, have been beaten. And as you can see here, this lady here, they have been stripped. They have been trapped also in this revolution. And many of them have been killed and injured in this demonstration. But what about after the revolution? And 1 year ago, almost in the 5th of March, during the Commission of Status of Women, the CSW, in its session, the 57, the Mrs. Mirvat Tilawi, who was a former minister in Egypt, and now she's the president of the National Council for Egyptian Women, she mentioned that the ladies, they have a lot of problems and a lot of violence against the Egyptian women, especially in the political field or in the political participation. And as we can see here, although you saw now how they did stand side by side by with the men in Tahrir Square and the revolutions in all the cities and the towns in Egypt, but although they still have a lot of problems and discrimination against them, even though in the political issue. And this is summarized as Mrs. Mirvat Al-Tilawi mentioned in the oppression against women. In the political situation, there is an oppression against them took place, and no fair representation between women and men in the committee drafting Egyptian constitution, and the parliament quota was abolished suddenly after this revolution, and the women's rights laws were started to be backward. So we can see here also no quota for women in the political parties. As we can see, and as it is clear that there's a clear discrimination against them in the political situation. But what about after the revolution? I know that we still have revolution in Egypt, but it's like after the revolution results started to take place, what did happen? In November 2013, since 5 months ago, a survey which covers 22 Arab countries by Thomson Reuters Foundation took place and found that Egypt ranked the lowest position in the survey of women's rights in the Arabic world, even though Egypt come lower than the Saudi Arabia. Can you imagine? So this is because of, and they said that this is because of the significant spike in the sexual harassment. So it was like a very huge sexual harassment before the revolution, and 1 out of 4 women in Egypt, based on the surveys and the questionnaires and the studies before the revolution, she had sexual harassment or sexual violence. But this became much more after the revolution, as you saw that there was raping in the streets and harassment and a lot of sexual violence against them. Because of that, Egypt ranked as the lowest position in this survey. But also we can see that the big loser of the political changes in the Arabic region, was the women. So the women, they are among the big losers in this revolution, which means that this study found the recent political changes in the region had failed to improve the status of women. Not just only that, it makes them just come in the lowest priorities in the revolution's objectives. What about the revolution in Syria? In the Syrian women's political participation in Syria, it's summarized in demonstration, chanting, which is typical to Egypt, funeral of victims, writing slogans against the Assad regime on the world. They start to do that, which is new, and having a major role of the defense of young demonstrators and protest, and distribution of publication and organizing campaigns. Also, the smuggling of activists outside the country. That was like a very major rule they did. They helped the activists who their life under threatened to go outside the country before the regime or the other groups killed them or just arrest them or something like that. And they did use the social media and the social networking sites to just write what they want against this regime, and this was in a free way, so no one can just follow them or know anything about this, to speak freely against the oppression and injustice in Syria. But let us say that during the revolution, the Syrian women, they did suffer a lot, and they still suffer, because it's their suffer explodes day after day till this moment, as we know that the revolution still happens in Syria. And the women there, they play different roles. as a mother, as a wife, as a protester, as a very important point or participants in the demonstration. And based on all of these roles, she was like a main actor in this revolution. Let us see what did happen and still happens to them during the revolution. Arresting, beating, injuring and killing, sexual harassment, rape, stripping, which is not new, and kidnapping. This red thing is new. All of this happened in the street, like Egypt, but also at homes, just like in front of her family members or by kidnapping her. And no one is allowed to protect her, even though her father, they can just like rape her in front of him. This is a very brutal thing happens now in Syria. Okay, let us travel to my home country, Palestine. Okay, as you can see here, the Palestinian ladies. The Palestinian women, they have always played a very vital role in the political participation because of the Palestinian context. As you know, that we have occupation to our land since the very early in the century. And she had a vital role in the political participation from maybe the century of 18th century. We have it in our history. And for many examples from the history mentioned how much she was active. For example, in 1917, I don't know if you know about Balfour Promise, which came from the United Kingdom's General Secretary, Arthur James Balfour, to give, it was like a letter like this, His Majesty gives a promise to the Jews to have a home country in Palestine. Whatever it was, this letter, but the women, they saw that there is injustice to give a country as a gift to another population. So they start to make demonstration. They were side by side with men, in case they are not the first to do this demonstration. So they did make demonstration against Balfour Promise at 1917. And 1 year later, or in 1920, they were included in the delegation that met with the British High Commissioner to clarify their point of view about that we are not agree about this Balfour Promise and blah 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 like this. So they were in the just like the highest political level of representation. And 1 year after, they did found the Palestinian Women's Union by the Palestinian women. But passing after that, when we go to the history, we will see also a vital role to the Palestinian woman in 1964, when the Palestinian Liberation Organization did come, and then in 1967 they start to publish the leaflets against the occupation and against the war. And passing with the 70s and the 80s, she has a very major role. For example, in the 80s we had the first uprising, which is the first Intifada, and she started to make an initiative like, okay, people in Gaza and West Bank, you have to boycott the Israeli products. So, but how they can boycott the Israeli products while they don't have any alternatives, the people in Palestine? So these women, they start to make the alternatives. They start to make like baking bread, they start to make cheese, they start to have a very simple industry products to make the people boycott the Israeli products. And in this case, they didn't just only participate politically, but also they did participate in establishment of the economic infrastructure. And as we can see from also the 90s until this moment, the Palestinian women did break the normal model of the Arabic woman, that she's a second class citizen in the society and she should stay as a household or something like that. And based on some of the thinkers, they are international thinkers and politicians, they said that the Palestinian women, she has always the model, the perfect model that the Arabic women dream with under the dictatorial regime, because we still have a struggle. And before the Arab Spring revolutions, the Arabic women, they stayed at homes, the majority I say, or in usual, and they didn't have any role in the political representation. So yes, she started in very early times to be in the first line in the political life. But to be fair, we need to say that the Palestinian women, she did affect a lot the Arabic ladies in the Arab Spring Revolution, but also the Arabic Spring Revolutions and the issue of the Arabic women's political participation did affect and still affect the Palestinian women. And based on Hudaya Shamaoun, and she is like a Palestinian activist and journalist, and she's working in women's issues. She mentioned that the Tunisian and Egyptian revolution gave the hope again to the Palestinian women after the cloy by the complicity path of the Palestinian cause and from the Palestinian division between Fatah and Hamas. Because as you know, in 2007 we had a division between the Palestinian house parties, Fatah and Hamas, and it was like a lot of problems. And all the people, they start to lose the hope that we will have like hope to solve these problems. And when this Arab Spring revolutions comes and start to come in 2010, 2011, and the Arabic women, they start to be side by side in the first lines with men, so this returned the hope to the Palestinian women that we will have a solution. You can do many things to have a solution. Because of that, after the beginning of the Egyptian revolution, a group of Palestinian young women, they start to make a protest and demonstration and a solidarity to these revolutions. And that was before any political or politician or political parties, they did mention their attitude from this revolutions. So the women, they start the initiative when they get the hope. And in March, 15th of March, the mid of March 2011, they start to have demonstration against the Palestinian division. And in this demonstration, they have been injured and they have been just beaten by the authority. So this they still have all of this like hope. We want to change till this moment. And the Palestinian bloggers and activists on Facebook, they did do a lot of work in the Libyan and Egyptian revolution especially, and they did write a lot of solidarity poem or press releases or just like a statement that we want to make solidarity with you, we encourage you. So this, how did the Arabic Spring revolution affect the Palestinian political participation for women? And as you can see from what I did say in the three countries, it's like very summarized points, but as you can see, we saw that the Arabic women, they have a very vital role in Arabic Spring Revolution. They were side by side with men in the first lines. But also no one can deny that after this revolutions, the Arabic women start to have a step backwards. Their rights start to be lost in this Arabic Spring revolutions. And the question for all of you and for the Arabic people and the men who participated in this Arabic Spring Revolution, who will protect the rights of these women? Are we as women the only responsible about protecting these rights or not? Thank you for your listening. And I'm ready for any question. In case.
What do you think about the future in Egypt for the women in Egypt? Do you see any hope or for a more maybe feministic movement, or is it too hard?
There's always a hope. It's like this, and the feminism movement in Egypt, it's like any feminist movement in the world. They have like forward and backward. So what they need now, just like to advocate all the efforts to do something, just like at least to return back the situation of women, at least as it was before the revolution, because it's after when the Muslim brothers, they came and they start to make things, it's like a hidden bias or discrimination against the political situation and the other issues for women. That wasn't perfect. So now a lot of people, I met a lot of people in different countries, they are from Egypt, and they are working to return back, and they are doing well for that. And basic one of them, or a famous one of them, she is Mirza Tilawi. We met in Malaysia, and she works very well in her council, Egyptian council, for returning back the rights to the women and doing this.
But before the revolution, there was a quota in Egypt.
Yes, it was a quota.
How was the quota?
It wasn't like that fair or justice, but at least they had the quota in the political parties, they had the quota in the parliament, so it wasn't like now they don't have quota in the political parties and the quota in the parliament abolished. So it's like based on the party to do this or do this, and this is not good. As the representation to women in the parliament and the political parties.
In Palestine, in Gaza and West Bank, Hamas and Fatah, is there a good representation of women in the political landscape? You know?
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
It's like in 2006 in the election, it was like the situation better than before. It's like as I said, that always the women's movement have like steps forward and backward. So until Oslo Accords, which it happened in the 90s, it was like a representation on all the political parties for women without quota. You will find women everywhere.
Okay.
But when Oslo Accords comes, and it's like it was like from the Western world, they said, we don't want resistance, we want you to build your civil society and start doing this and this and this. The women's representation went back a lot, even though in the political parties. So since this problem, I mean in the women's representation, till 2006, it was the best time, 2006, and the representation. We have a quota in Palestine. It's like in the political, in the election, you have to have as a political party a list, and in the first 3 names you should have a lady. And in the second 4 names, you should have a lady. And in the third 5 names, you should have a lady. So they are putting the women always, it's like this, men, lady, because it's in the third. And then in the second 4, they are putting men, lady, woman. And then man, until here, lady. But they have to. And in the board of the NGOs now, to have a license to run organization, NGO, you should have in the board 1 or 2 or 3 ladies, but it's not enough. It's not good and it's not enough. And even though in the negotiation between Israel and Palestine, just like we had in some period, we had just only 1 lady, who was Hanan Ashrawi, and just like fortunately the Israeli, they have the same. No, just I'm kidding. It's like even though the Israeli side, they have just only 1 lady who was at civil evening was Hanan Ashrawi, and then suddenly they gone, and it was like men. So it's bad situation on all the region, even though Israel, all of us in bad situation. Yeah. Yes, please.
Do you have an idea on what political actions are the most important to make now in order to start making the representation better? Where should you start in the Arab countries? Is it by quota, or should you take some other political action?
It's like based on a study. It's not published, but I did a study in Iceland University in 2012, and I did the spread questionnaire, online questionnaire in Yemen, Palestine, Egypt, and based on this study, the main obstacle wasn't the man, wasn't the society, wasn't the customs and traditions. It was the woman herself. Because we should start with the women themselves to let them know their rights. And this is your right. You have to ask about your right. You have to be here. It's not like you need. So when she knows her rights, she will start fighting and struggling. It's not enough if we are just in this room. We are like 8 ladies, and 2 ladies, they are fighting for their rights, and the other they are not. So we need to educate. And then you can go after that to the men, and then to the media to reflect what you have done with men and women. And then the customs and the traditions will be changed by this. Because it's not like in the political section or in the political context also. We are speaking about, okay, we have violence against women, but we ignore that. It's like 2 kinds. One of them against women from men, and one of them against women from women. So we need to solve.
And this thing by including civil society in a political context, could that be something? Because women are often more part of the civil society as opposed to the men who are more a part of the political community. Is that something that could work?
Your question again?
I mean, including civil society or like the private more into politics.
Yeah, okay, because you mean what you did say, that okay, the women, they are more in the civil society than in the political issue, so we need to include this. Of course, we need to include all the like all the sides, all the parties in this issue. And it's like, unfortunately, and today, just like we did speak about the same point before I coming, it's like, okay, we deal with women as minorities, while they are the half of almost the half more or less of the society, but they are vulnerable and they are marginalized, and they are just like, they have a lot of problems. I do believe that because the problem inside these women, I'm a woman, I don't have bias against them, but from my work in Gaza as an activist for many years with women, that they need to be educated, because when you know your rights, you will start to have struggle to ask, but I want this is my right, why you are taking it? So, and they need also to collaborate. And what I noted also from many different studies in the world, and from many different speeches from many parliament people in the world, that it's the same point here in Sweden, in Palestine, in Egypt, in Iceland. It's like, okay, when the women, they are in the political parties, it's not enough. It's not about numbers and the quantities, it's about the qualitative issue. Because when you are a player within the same team, you will play just like the same tone of this team. So when I'm in this, for example, in some of these parties, and this party, it doesn't care about the political issue for women, so I will not be cared, even though from inside I'm caring. So we need representative to the women themselves in the parliament, with like women groups, just like working for women's issue. In this case, we can change. Because of that, I'm part of FI. So just like, because they are working for women, for gender, so you can focus with them. But if I am a woman from another party, I will care about the propaganda of the party, right? It's not like for the women issues. Please.
Do you think it's something a country like Sweden can do to make the situation better for women in these countries? Like something the government can do, or like the people, like something to like support the women?
And the other countries?
Yeah, in like Palestine or Syria.
Yes, of course, anything, any help can help. But I think also, yes, this can help a lot too, if they just like target, and this did help, Just like they mentioned a lot of donors to the Palestinian NGOs. Okay, we will not fund you if you don't have gender equality in the board or women represented.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help very, very much. Because of what? Because if you have like a lady in the board and just like she's 1 out of 11 or out of 9, so what she can do? We need more things. And I see that also it's like the women's problems, they are spread in all over the world, even though in Sweden, even though in Iceland. Iceland was in 2012 one of the very top ranked, maybe it was the first in the world, based on the European report for that time, and decreasing the gender gap between women and men. But in the same year, the United Nations for Women statistics mentioned that it was 3% of sexual violence there for like 360,000 people, which is like a very high rate. So in every country, we still have this problem, the gender payment gap in all over the world, the problems of hiring the ladies and the women in the subordinary positions like nurses. In some countries, like the Arab countries, it's like difficult to find a male nurse. Yes, because this is subordinary, and she should depend on the doctor and follows the doctor, and he gives her orders, so she is always like female. Or in the kindergartens, teachers, the majority they are just, it's not the majority, all of them they are females. And I think this happens in all over the world, but with different percentages. So yes, we can cooperate in that, but we need more efforts, more creative ideas for that. We need to convince the men themselves that you need us. You know what? We don't need to convince them. We need them to think that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, please.
It would be interesting, Amany, to hear about shortly about your journey from being an activist in Palestine to ending up here, nominated to the European Union list.
Sorry again.
Sorry. How come you ended up, like, you started as a Palestinian feminist in Palestine, and now you're here representing FI for the EU list? How was that journey? How did it?
I have a video.
Yeah.
Will answer you.
Okay.
It's like I'm an activist since more than 8 years in Palestine, and I'm working in women's rights issues and in women's issues in general. And I start to work outside Palestine and have like meetings since 2011 in Jordan, and then I traveled to Egypt to make a pilot study about this Arab Spring revolutions in Yemen and Egypt and the reflection on Palestine. And then now in the video I will produce to you some of my works in many countries here in Europe and in outside Europe. So you can see it.
have their good life in this world. Thank you.
I hope that this did answer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, like one more funny thing that during I was studying in Oslo University for Peace, and during the Peace Nobel Prize Center, they asked us to write like a recommendation to the EU Parliament, and just I wrote, okay, stop the Palestinian suffers, we need peace. And it's the funny thing that I'm one of the candidates now to the EU, so it's like it happens. So yes.
So how will you work now with the EU? It's in May, right? The elections for.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can speak to you about this if you would like. On Saturday we will have a meeting, and it's not like a meeting, it's an event for FI and for me as a candidate of FI in the EU list for the EU Parliament. And I will just like reply all the question and just like how this activist live in Norway and is not at all Swedish, are now in the Swedish list. So and why they did choose me, and why I did accept this, and I will also show a movie for a real asylum seeking process with the real actors in this asylum seeking process. So you are welcome. But regarding the feminist initiative nomination for me in the European Parliament, it's like I'm an Arabic Palestinian feminist lady, and I always like have a struggle since I was in the university, just like, oh, I want to change these laws, I want to do this, I want to do this. And then I thought while I was working, and my last post was like a regional program coordinator. It's a regional program called Convenio, and this targets the reproductive and sexual rights and health for women in Lebanon, Jordan and Palestine, and I was the program coordinator in Gaza for the UHWC. And just I thought that, okay, now I can see from this regional program when we have annual meetings with the partners that it's not a problem in Palestine, it's in Jordan and Lebanon as well. Just like when my circles start to be big, I discovered that it's like this problem in the border of this circle. So at first it was like Palestine, then Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, then the Arabic countries, then the European, then the whole world. So what I can do for this, it's like my duty as a feminist to do a change about this. So when the feminist initiative, they did choose me to join their election, even though it was exceptionally, it's real, but exceptionally nomination. I wanted also to target the discrimination against the immigrants and against the females and the immigrants. It's like this. It's when a family come here and they have like daughters and sons. The society, okay, if there's a discrimination in the labor market because of the certificates and the name of these people and the blah blah blah, but also there are another, me as a daughter, I have like from outside and from inside in many cases. It's like the family, they want to let these people to live in the same conditions as they are in the home country. So they start like to enforce the females to do many things that they don't want to do at all, or just like to enforce them to not do many things that they would love to do, and this is discrimination. So because of that I want to work for the immigrants in this election campaign, and I want to work for the undocumented and hidden people. It's not like the problem that I don't have documents. I do, and I'm now Norwegian Palestinian, but the problem that the hidden and undocumented people, how they do feel, and what is, it's like many times I didn't imagine myself while this ghost like dance around me, and threatened me that you will be a hidden or undocumented person, even though I couldn't hide myself as an activist, but it's like this. So because of that, I did choose to work for these two main points, plus to speak about the Palestinian issue, which is like, as a Palestinian, just like to try to change, in case we hope that the EU change a lot of policies in the Palestinian courts, in the gender equality context, and in the immigrants and hidden people. Actually, I am not sure, and just I do believe that it's not possible for me to enter it in this time, but just like sometimes I close my eyes, and as you don't know that, I was asylum seeker here, and because of Dublin they deport me to Norway, where I did a study, and I just like, I would love to be Swedish, so sometimes I closed my eyes and dreamed that, okay, Amany, in case you are in the EU, the first thing I will do to eliminate Dublin, just convention and let the people live everywhere they want. So it's like this. Yes. So is there any question?
Thank you so much, Amany.
You're
very inspiring.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much also for you coming for me today and for the invitation.
Small flower, like this, pink one, and then
wow.
you also have a thermos with a UN logo.
Oh wow!
Thank you again for coming. Yeah. Maybe see you on Saturday as well.